Welcome to The B Word, a women's lifestyle podcast. I'm your host, Katie Ploss. I'm a school psychologist, women's wellness coach, a doula, and the founder of BU, a women's wellness community. I created The B Word to share my stories, knowledge, and training to help you navigate the everyday challenges of being a woman. We discuss everything from navigating dating and relationships, parenting, building a career, to just finding what you're passionate about and figure out who you are meant to be. At The B Word, we aim to destigmatize mental health challenges, grow, heal, and empower you to be your most authentic self. Let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to this episode of The B Word. I am so excited for this week's episode where it's going to be a fun one. We're talking all things travel and so much more than travel. I think travel sounds so fun and frivolous, but I'm hoping to get into I hope you learned something today. I hope you think about how you can expand your horizons and where travel fits into your life in a more meaningful way than just going to do things for the social media aspect of it. But I had to bring an expert for this because while I am well traveled, I wanted to have somebody that specializes in this too. So I am introducing you all this week to Tricia. She is a life and travel coach, a personal trainer, and a retreat host with over 15 years of international travel experience. Her passion lies in empowering people to find their purpose and meaning in their lives through healing retreats, which I'm so excited to talk about, intentional travel, fitness, and life coaching. She's like your personal passport to a life-changing journey filled with fun, discovery, and growth. Hi, Tricia.
Hi, Katie. Thank you for the intro.
Yeah, I'm so excited you're here and I have so many questions for you and I can't wait to pick your brain. So thank you for joining the B Word and we're going to dive right into it. I want to start with you introducing yourself and talk about how you got into travel, how you got into this as a career, and yeah, all that stuff. So just give it to us straight. How did you
Right.
get started?
All right, let's go deep.
Right away.
Uh, yeah, that's the only way I know how to do it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've been traveling since college. I've been traveling pretty much my whole life, but I think about family trips and like solo or more adventurous Tricia trips as like two different things.
For sure. For sure.
So, yeah. So starting in college-ish is when the exciting Tricia adventures started.
Yes, I love this.
Yeah. So I studied abroad in Ireland, which we found out
Yes,
have
we
similar
have this in common. I
experiences.
also studied
Yeah.
abroad in Ireland back in 2013, which is crazy. I look back at pictures now and I'm like, that was so long ago. And I really want to go back there. I didn't expect it to be as beautiful as it was. And I think too, that was what started my travel bug in a way too, of that I went to this place and I don't know, people describe Ireland as very rainy and like dreary, similar to the UK, but it was so stunning and it just so caught me off guard.
Mhm.
And I think once you have that experience for the first time, it's addicting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally addicting. That's a great way to describe it. Yeah, I agree. Ireland is so beautiful, so green, the culture is so fun and like
Yeah.
lighthearted in a way.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that I had done anything that wasn't the family travel kind of stuff.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this is for me. I never want to stop. And then I didn't. I'm still in it. But like for 8 years, I was like living in other countries and traveling internationally. And yeah, I really just caught that bug because it really empowered me. Like I felt it's scary to travel to another country, especially by yourself. And once you get through all of the hard moments and awkward encounters and language barriers, like each one of those experiences builds your confidence and builds on your self-esteem, I think. And that was huge for me because I had really low self-esteem growing up and I think I needed that boost.
Yeah. Where are you from?
I'm from Ohio.
Okay, where in Ohio? I'm from
Cincinnati.
Metro Detroit, so not that far.
Oh, okay, Cincinnati.
Okay. So, obviously, Ohio gets such a bad rap, but obviously, coming from Ohio, did you when you studied abroad, were you going to school in Ohio too?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, coming from Ohio, it is, like, such a huge culture shock no matter where you go out of the US, but I also think too what and I don't know if you had this experience, what struck me when I started traveling was, like, the US is an anomaly in that a lot of people in the US don't experience travel, and they don't experience other cultures outside of the US, whereas
Mhm,
other people in other countries are very knowledgeable about our culture, and they also are very well traveled. And I think that was startling for me that I felt like I had been ignorant for a lot of my life. Even though I traveled with my family a good amount, but when I was an adult traveling solo, like you said, it's a different feeling. I felt like there was
mhm.
this kind of ignorance that I had missed out on that I needed that I was like in this cultural immersion education. It was cool.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's so common for other cultures to do, like, gap years and
Mhm. Yeah.
to live in another country for, like, part of your schooling. So
Right.
doing, like, the what do you call it when somebody comes.
I there's a pairing, but then they have there's the exchanges, the
Yeah,
foreign
yeah, yeah,
exchange.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's totally normal to go and travel all over the place.
yeah. But I also understand why there's a lot of Americans that don't even have passports. I
Mhm.
think one main thing is because our culture around work and
Yep.
a lot of people are in these corporate jobs where, yeah, you have vacation time, but it's also almost frowned upon to take vacation time.
Mhm.
So when you do, you just wanna make it easy. Like, you're,
Yep.
"Okay, Florida it is, where I can just sit on the beach and chill and
Yep.
not have to deal with anything."
Mhm.
So I think that's a huge part of it, and I also think the US is huge, and
Oh,
there's
wait.
so many different cultures within the US and
Yep.
different climates and different experiences. So you can do a lot just in this country. I think if people could be more intentional about it, "Oh, I'm gonna go to Colorado, for instance, and go visit the Native American tribal areas and learn more about that." I think that kind of travel is really impactful, even if it is in the country that you grew up in.
Mhm.
I think it's
Mhm.
just not everybody does that.
No, not very many I would say the minority of people do that, but you're right, and I think that is what I've thought about too over the years is that I still haven't now I've really the last 10 years, I've really experienced a lot of the US and different parts of the US, and that's been really cool after I did all of this international travel, like, now almost 10 years ago. But I think a lot of people don't even do that, like, they literally just I go to Florida and I come back especially if you're in the Midwest. I don't know, it's like, there's something
Yeah.
with the Midwest and Florida. But,
Yeah.
I think there's so many people even in the Midwest that have never been to, like, the East Coast or, like, the Northwest, Pacific Northwest. I went there for the first time last year, and it was like I was amazed. I'm like, "How have I not been here before?" It's 1, it's hard to get to, it's expensive to get to, but it is stunning, and I was like, "This is right in our backyard. This is in the US." So, I totally agree, and I think that experiencing other cultures, whether you do it here or you do it abroad, is so important to becoming a well-rounded human. Like understanding
Mhm.
that there's people different than you that live different lives than you and experiencing the way that they live, not just like reading about it or seeing it online. I think people also think that they know what they're talking about if they read about it or they watch videos about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think getting out there and, like, really seeing it and just putting yourself in these uncomfortable situations is such a huge growth opportunity. And I've been, like, I don't know if it's because I'm manifesting all of this or if it's, like, my computer is listening to me, but I am, like, inundated with information about over tourism right now.
Yes. Okay, I am too.
Okay, so maybe it's just, like, trending right now or something.
I it's funny because I am too, and I'm getting married next year, and I'm starting to plan my
Oh,
honeymoon,
congrats.
Thank you. And I literally just like yesterday saw this video about how it was basically like avoid Italy for all of 2025. And that's not so much just it's partly because of over tourism. It's also because they're having this like big jubilee thing, whatever, for the Vatican. But I think that there is this like oversaturation that people are talking about right now. And it's so like, what are your thoughts on it?
Yes, I think there's a over tourism issue in a lot of places. And I think it's not always about the tourists. Like I feel like people are so quick to blame like the tourists coming there. But I
Mhm.
think there also should be a little bit more management from the government
Mm,
of each place and
yeah,
like how to manage it and like maybe promoting other areas of your country so
yeah.
people just know that there's other things out there. A lot of people just don't know. They're like, oh, Italy, Venice, Rome, cool, that's where I'm going. Book done.
Mhm.
And now these places are just they can't handle it. Like Venice, they're protesting tourism and they can't afford to live there anymore. And okay, yeah, that's because a lot of people are coming there. Well, what other options can we give them? Like, let's educate people, tell
Right.
people where else they can go and what else they can see.
Literally today,
Um,
I've been doing this research myself. Where in Italy am I could I go? Not that I don't know. I think too, I experienced Europe during peak travel season in Paris, and I really didn't enjoy it. But or I didn't I Okay, Paris is a place that I think everybody should experience because it's just, like, so cool, but I think there's the Parisians also feel some type of way about tourists, and it was during peak travel season, and it just I don't know, I felt like I didn't get to enjoy it as much because it was just, like, so oversaturated, and this was 10 years ago. This isn't, like, necessarily new, I think it also depends on time of year too, but I
mm,
yeah, I think that it is tricky to navigate. There's this like we're on one hand like really encouraging people to travel, see the world. And then some of these places that are really oversaturated that you go to, they're like, we don't even want you here. And they're mean,
mhm.
especially in Paris. They're super mean. And then like you're saying in Venice when protesting tourism, it's really hard to know how to navigate that. And people just don't do their homework, like and really look at all these off the beaten path places because they think they have to see the landmarks.
But I think there also is like a movement for more off the beaten path. Like there's a lot of like group trips that I've seen that are like geared towards like we really do go off the beaten path and like we're gonna take you places that you may never have heard of. And I think that that's great. So with anything, like with a problem, like a bunch of people are working on solutions. So I think that's really great.
I like too, and you even coin yourself as an intentional travel coach. So being more intentional about how we travel and where we're traveling and what we're trying to do. And I'm not even talking, I mean, like there are some trips that I've either taken or planning to take where my intention isn't to do shit. I just want to go and relax, right? But
Yeah.
even being intentional about that, I'm not talking about necessarily intentionally overscheduling yourself and going and seeing and doing everything there is to do. There are also trips I've taken where that was my intention to do, depending on where I was going and whatever. But I think too that is something that could probably be a part of this is like really intentionally showcasing places that meet the needs of what you're looking for. I just think there's this balance and this intentionality behind it and like really
Mhm.
thinking about what are you trying to accomplish on this travel? What are you trying to experience? I actually haven't really thought of intentional travel as like words I would pair together, but it is. I think that it would make such a huge difference when you're planning a trip.
What I try and, like, really promote in travel okay, let me back up a little with, like, my background
Yeah.
and
I know we got off
why
track.
travel has changed me so much. No, it's good to get off track. That was a great got off track on some good stuff. So, in high school, I was bullied pretty heavily,
Mm,
and it just killed my self-esteem.
yeah,
I just felt like shit about myself. I got into a lot of drugs and alcohol
mm,
and like sleeping around,
yeah.
all these just like toxic things that were my coping mechanism, which just makes you feel worse and worse. It's this kind of shitty loop that you're going through.
Right.
And, I was in that out of high school into college, and then I started traveling and it started to change a bit.
In my travels, I met a lot of people that were traveling to avoid themselves too, and I think there is this there I don't everyone I know that is like a serial traveler has had this you eventually get to kind of not a rock bottom, but I don't know, a point where you're like you have to see yourself. A massive shift needs to happen. I think a lot of people, especially people that get into traveling, experience this.
Mhm. Yeah, and it takes time. I'm 35 and I probably just had that life shifting experience like
Mhm.
3 years ago. And up until then, it was, yeah, I'm gonna travel to run away from all of these traumas. Travel also became this coping mechanism of, "Oh, okay, I don't have to live in this place where there are these people that bullied me and made me feel so little and traumatized me. I can get out of there, get out of the country, like, as
Yep.
far away as I can." Yes, I wanna do that. So, it started and as, like, this coping mechanism, but then it also I think that was, like, a healthy coping
I was gonna
mechanism,
say, and there
but
is something freeing
it
about that, right?
aided.
There's so much life
Yeah.
and there's a bigger picture. I think that's really what traveling gave to me. And I think when you're having an experience where like you're being bullied or like you feel like you don't fit for whatever reason and where you come from, to know that there's such a bigger world out there and to really experience it is very liberating. But there comes a
Mhm,
point where it goes past that and that you are, like, traveling to avoid or numb out. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to go home. It just means that you have to figure out how to heal that no matter where you are in the world.
mhm. Yeah, and I think part of the healing process was I lived in these really underdeveloped countries like Tanzania and
Mm.
Nepal, where, like, poverty is just in your face. Like, you're friends with somebody who lives
But
home with a tin roof
yeah.
and made out of, like, sticks and mud, and they have their whole family living in this one room,
Mhm.
and their kitchen is just, like, a pot right outside the door, like, it's hard to wrap your head around, and yet these people that I met that were living like that were some of the happiest people I've ever met, and I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute, this is your life?" And to me, that doesn't look like you have a lot. And I have come from the US where, like, I had a comfortable childhood and I'm so unhappy. That doesn't feel right.
Mhm.
And I'm not discounting my feelings and my traumas, but it was just like a way to get out of my head and see a different perspective
For
and, like,
sure.
allow that to just become ingrained in.
Yes.
And whenever I do get bogged down in, like, the shit in my head, I can remind myself, "Oh, you have a friend that has this life, and they're so happy because 'cause they're surrounded by their community. Okay, let me think about what I have. Okay, I feel like it helps me wrap my head around what's going on in my life."
And I think too, like, changing your perspective of what happiness can look like. And can be
Mhm,
like. Even it I think in the US, we have a specific especially and this obviously varies in different places in the US because it is such a there's so many cultures here, but I think that seeing how other people live and seeing that even, like, they might be perceived to have less but still be very happy, I think it just opens up this door of, like, well, I can be happy with a different outcome than I, like, perceived that for myself or that I thought I needed to have or a certain way of life or a certain experiences I had and didn't have. I think you can really start to become more of a curious observer because that's really what you're doing when you're
mhm,
traveling and you're meeting new people is you are this very curious observer of people's lives and trying on different cultures, not for size. I don't want to say it in like a cultural appropriation way, but like you're really practicing that skill. And I think it's hard, really hard to do that in our day-to-day lives when we're not out of our norm.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I think that when you're traveling and you're able to tap into that intentionality, I think that is like what kind of makes the difference between just traveling and like taking the Instagram pictures and then going home. By
Mhm.
the way, Instagram pictures are great. I'm not shitting on them. that was like my
But
little
no, but it's
example.
true. It's
But
not. I see a lot of people too, literally solely doing things to get a photo, and they're not present. They're not experiencing it. I've been guilty of this. This is one of my favorite examples. I talk about this with clients that I work with for therapy is about being present and being intentional. It's actually a travel moment too, so it goes very well in this episode. I was at the Palace of Versailles and I was with my family for this week in Paris, and they met me at the end of my study abroad. I was so excited to go to the Palace of Versailles. I've been talking about it all day the day before, and then all day at the Palace of Versailles, I was talking about how excited I was for what we were doing the next day. I think it was going to Disneyland Paris or something. I can't remember what we were doing, but I was
fun.
talking about how excited, and my dad looked at me and he goes, "You talked all day yesterday about how excited you were to be here, and you're not even here. Your head is in tomorrow.
Mm,
Like, you're not here experiencing this once in a lifetime kinda moment." And it just kinda, like, snapped me into my body and into the present, and I always think about that. I think a lot of people do that when they're traveling or just living life. Just, going on to the next thing,
mhm.
getting the picture, checking the box, and they're not experiencing it.
Yeah, I think that what a lot of people talk about is like,
Yeah.
how can I be present in my
Mhm.
life every day? And it's fucking hard.
It's hard to do, and when you have trauma that you're healing from or pain that you're running from, it's even harder to do because we have to process all of those things before we can experience, like, the peace and the contentment in the present,
Mhm.
the ability to be present. But it is challenging. So how did you embark on that healing journey? What was that like for you?
I think having this like new perspective that I was taking in from these different cultures really helped to kind of like jumpstart this
Mhm.
new way of thinking.
The light bulb moment. We all
Um,
need that, but then the work
Mhm.
starts.
Yeah, then you got to deal with it.
Exactly.
And the timeline from the light bulb to actually dealing with it is very long, but I had great times in between, but life is all about the ebbs and the flows.
Of course.
Yes, and then I moved to Hawaii a few years ago. The energy there, I don't know if you felt it, but I thought it was, like, so strong. You cannot run away from your shit there.
I
It
agree. Honestly, that's actually really funny you say that because I was with my family on that trip. I remember so vividly, like, we did the road to Hana, like, I was in Oahu for a few days, and we had these, like, epic meltdown, and we still, like, to this day will joke about that trip because we're like, "Whoa, like, were we good? Like, what was in the air, dude?
what
It was
happened?
crazy." I know, I don't know what it is about Hawaii. It's a beautiful place, recommend everyone to go there. But,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah, I know what you
definitely
mean, I
definitely
do.
check it out, deal with your demons.
Literally.
Okay, so yeah, you can relate to, like,
Yeah.
just feeling that. So that was when things started to shift for me, and I was like, "Okay, I'm being thrown all of these" now I'll call them opportunities for growth. But at the time, I was like, "All of this shit is just, like, piling on, like, all of these conflicts with roommates and with jobs and with what I wanna do with my life." It was all just, like, hitting me, and it was bringing up a lot of stuff from the past and, like, I like, trust issues and
Yeah.
trust with myself and dealing with relationships, and it was a lot, and I was like, "What the hell is happening?" And
This is supposed to be
that was
paradise, and I
when
don't feel like
I
it's
know,
paradise here. I
like,
really
people are
relate to
bullshit. So then I got connected with a life coach who also does dream boarding, like vision boarding, and that changed my life. I was able to finally work on my traumas in this place that was, like, wanting me to heal.
Mhm.
I think that's why the energy is so intense because it's just come here and heal, allow Mama Nature, Hawaii, Mama, whoever
There
it
is
is,
it's
whatever
very
it is.
spiritual there. It totally is.
Yeah. Allow me to just help you heal, help me help you, really. So that was when things shifted for me and I was really like facing things head on and it inspired me to actually become a coach myself. I was like, whoa, that was magical, whatever just happened. 10 years of trauma was like released in one session, and my life was just amazing. So she had her own kind of magic. And I was like, yeah, I want to learn what all of this is so I can pass it along and help other people feel.
And so, and you have wrapped travel into this. And so tell me about like the retreats that you do and those and the healing retreats and what that looks like.
Yeah, so in my business, I really want to combine healing with travel and with nature. So those are kind of like three components to it. And I also really want to travel to these off the beaten path places that are have people surrounded by nature. Nature has such healing powers. And I think people don't often we live inside a lot these days. And I think helping people to just get off the grid, be somewhere that a little more secluded, surrounded by nature where it's just you, me, like the other retreat participants who are also there to just feel and have fun. Also, there's a lot of
Yeah.
play
Yeah.
and just be with yourself, reconnect with who your true self is, reconnect with nature, and then also have this travel experience where you can learn about another culture and connect with somebody who has a completely different life from you. And yeah, I like to create my retreat that kind of encompass all of that.
Where are you primarily doing that? Where do you live now?
I live in Salt Lake City now in Utah.
Wow. What you went from like all over the place to Utah. Wait. Hey, I need to pause and talk about the retreats. What was that like?
I only just moved here a month ago.
Okay,
So,
so how has this been? How did you end up in Salt Lake?
a lot of people ask me that. I don't really have a good answer. I was like, Hawaii is too expensive. I don't want to deal with the hustle anymore right now. And I don't wanna deal with visas and, like, finding a job internationally, so, like, where else would I wanna live? And I was like, "Oh, Salt Lake City seems cool." I was there once for a day, and I really liked it, so let's go. So far, so good, though. It's been great. It's so beautiful. We're surrounded by mountains. There's, I don't know, 5 or so national parks,
Yeah,
like,
there's a
a
ton.
few hours away.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So, yeah, everyone's super nice and fun and outdoorsy and
Yeah.
having a good time.
It is a total shift, and even it's funny because when I think of Salt Lake, I think it's, like, such a conservative, it's very Mormon.
Right.
I've been to Colorado a bunch, and it is so beautiful, like, the Rocky Mountains and the West Coast is let's you're not on the West Coast, but you're on the west side of the country, and it's absolutely stunning, so I totally get the draw, but, yeah, what a shift from traveling the world to then does it in any way remind you of Ohio?
Not at all.
No, like, the people, nothing? 'Cause, like, the
I don't
Midwest,
think
like, people
so.
get, like, kind of the rep of being, like, very nice, like, down to earth kind of folk.
Yeah, I guess when I'm in Ohio, I'm, like, on high alert for, like, the
Ohio is your
triggers.
trigger.
Right,
I
I'm
think
working
most
on it, but yeah.
Michiganders could say the same, it's okay.
Anyone like I feel like whenever people are in their hometown, it's a different kind of vibe.
It's funny though, I was just talking to somebody about how I feel this, like, weird edginess when I go back to my hometown now, and there are reasons for, like I know what the reasons are, but it's just so bizarre because I used to love going to my hometown, and I think since the last few years, it's a totally different feeling. My hometown has this, like, really great reputation of being, like, just so cutesy and homey and whatever, and I don't feel like that when I go there anymore. And I
Yeah.
think but home is wherever you make it. And I do think, like, this healing work is figuring out that you are home no matter where you are.
Yes.
So wherever you like,
Couldn't have said it better.
wherever you lay your
Yeah.
head, but I think it's really interesting. So do you plan to stay in Salt Lake City for a while and like root down, or are you always like open to traveling?
I thought I was just always gonna be, like, bouncing around, and one thing that I've been learning about myself, and is what you said about home is within you. I I'm, like, such an earth sign babe that I need to feel grounded. I have to feel connected to earth in some
Yeah.
way or, like, my surroundings,
Yeah.
and how I've always traveled is, like, living somewhere. I think that's why I've always done it, because you can ground yourself easier than when you're, like, bopping around.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and it just gets more difficult, I think, at least for me, as I'm, like, growing up, to find a partner,
Oh, if
like,
you're just like
I
a
do
nomad?
wanna. Yeah, like, it's hard to meet men, have a relationship, at
It
least
was,
with
like,
men.
fun when we were,
It's
like,
easy to meet them, but
21, like, meeting other 21-year-old men, but yeah, eventually you're like, "Okay, I wanna, like I don't know what's next," but yeah, you do gotta root down a little bit. Within yourself,
yeah.
though, I still think but, like, that does sometimes mean, like, staying in proximity and, like, staying in a certain, space. So, I mean, you've only been there a month. Do you feel like it feels homey, like you would wanna stay there?
I think I'll get there. I think I'm still fresh and that I it takes some time before you feel like you belong or like you're
Totally.
part of the community. And I'm just like riding the wave and like meeting people and like
Yep.
doing what I can to get in the community. And I never really think like too long term because I'm such a spontaneous person, but I would like to be here long. I don't know what long term means to me, but a little more long term than normal and take trips, but have a home base to come back to.
That's how I felt,
Yeah.
like, when I started when I was obviously didn't travel as long as you did, but I remember getting to a point probably 8 years ago where I was like, "I wanna go home and then go places and come back home. I wanna travel everywhere, but I don't wanna live everywhere anymore." And I think because I also experienced that with studying abroad, I was an au pair in Australia, and then I went to grad school, and that was in Chicago, so that was closer to home, but I didn't feel like I was home, or Chicago never really felt like home. So, I felt the same way where I was like, "I just wanna visit places and come back and experience it and come back," and yeah, I totally
Mhm.
get what you mean by that.
Yeah. But it feels so far, this feels like a good fit for me, and, like, I
Abs
could create a little life for myself and find a partner, and then
Yeah.
my partner and me will go travel, and then we'll have a place to come back to, and it'll be
Yeah,
my
and just
little
staying
life.
open. I think, like, it is important to stay open, but also challenge yourself, right? It's easier to think of yourself if you when you've lived everywhere or traveled everywhere to continue to do that. It is a bit of a challenge to be like, "I'm gonna commit to staying here for a while." It's really have to, like
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
like, really work with your brain to, like, remold that, right?
Yeah. That's why, like, I say long term loosely in my life. 'Cause yeah, you never know. Yeah,
Yeah. I
staying
never say
open.
never.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So where are you planning retreats? Let's go back to retreats. Do they have certain locations? Like, what's the vibe?
So, yeah, I usually have some sort of theme. My next retreat is in Mexico in September, and that theme is all around connection. So what I was saying before, like connecting to nature, connecting to yourself, connecting to the other retreat participants and to the culture. And I'm partnering with a friend who's also a personal trainer and fitness coach. So we're gonna have some healing opportunities. Like we hired a shaman to come in and we're gonna do like a womb healing ceremony. We're gonna have sounds healing. We're gonna do meditations and like intentional journaling. We're also gonna do fun stuff. Like we have our own private cenote for the day.
Oh, cool.
And it's like in a super beautiful location. We're gonna go to one of the nearby islands for the day. So we're gonna have, I think, a good balance of intense healing but also some fun time, some chill time. We're also gonna do some workouts, of course, 'cause
Yeah.
we're a personal trainer. So,
Yeah. That's all
I think it's
part of
gonna
it.
be
I think
fun.
that mind, body, spirit aspect, when I think of,
Mhm.
like, a retreat or a healing retreat, it's, like, incorporating all of those pieces, that dynamic. The physical,
Right.
the spiritual, the emotional, the all of it. So that's awesome. Where else have like, where is the your favorite place you've done a retreat probably?
So this Mexico one is actually my first international retreat. So I've done like mini retreats in Hawaii. I actually did one last year in Ohio.
For
Been
you, though.
being in Ohio, hosting
Yeah.
a retreat.
Yeah. Like, doing the
Yeah.
healing work in that space.
Yeah. Yeah. I've come a long way
Yeah.
being able to like be for the most part feeling safe in Ohio. There's still a long way to go. But
It's okay.
yeah,
We which
having
like I said, we understand here.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that was great, and those are were focused like, I did one in January that was focused on New Year's goals and, like, in a way that you can actually, like, make them attainable and stick to them, and we did, like, a guided meditation that focused on figuring out your goals and what you want in life and taking them through, like, a journaling exercise. So I've done a few that are, like, goal setting kind of
Mhm.
themes, and then next year now this is, like, very beginning in the work, so I don't know many of the details, but I think next year I'm hosting a retreat on Mount Kilimanjaro in
Oh my
Tanzania.
wow.
Yeah, it's gonna be so special. I'm working with someone who she is a friend of my first life coach, and she, like, got my life coach into coaching. So she's, like, just I think very highly of her.
Yeah.
She's really good at what she does. So, yeah, we're working on a retreat that is about, empowerment, I think is gonna be the theme around it, and working through our shit on the mountain,
So
on
are
this
you guys, like,
gorgeous mountain.
are you climbing? Are you hiking all of Mount Kilimanjaro as part of it? Or
Yeah,
do you
like
'cause that's, like, why people go there is to hike the climb the mountain.
yeah,
So
so we're gonna do the trek, the
wow.
whole trek, and then let's say it's 7 days, like, each of those days, we're gonna incorporate a little bit of coaching work and meditation and opportunities to work on whatever's coming up.
Mhm.
We're anticipating people are gonna feel the feelings when you're going through something, like, physically and mentally challenging like that.
Yeah, I would imagine. Wow, that's gonna be really, really powerful. Have
Mhm.
you climbed Mount Kilimanjaro? Because I know you said you were in Tanzania before.
Yeah, I have not. Whenever I was there, I was volunteering
Yeah.
or not making money while I was working, so it's expensive
I
when
was
you're
gonna
not,
say
like
it's I know a lot it's more of a bougie thing to do, like, the people I know that have done it definitely do more they're more not, like, well-traveled, but they are have the ability to do really cool, crazy things like that. I am just, like, not I am I that is amazing. I really have a lot of respect for people that do shit like that. I'm just like, I hate, like, a basic hike, so I couldn't imagine, like, climbing a mountain. Like, when I'm going on a retreat, I'm like, "Let's do yoga," like, the Tibetan sound baths, like, what you're doing in Mexico, very much my vibe. Climbing a mountain, I would die. I would a
You
lot
wouldn't, and I bet
lot
you
would
could
come
do it
up
and
for
you'd feel
me.
very empowered after.
A lot would come up for me.
Great, and we look forward that's safe for you. Work
Yeah.
through it.
Yes, you would. Oh, no, that's awesome, that's really exciting, so a lot of, like, cool things on the horizon for you. Where do my friends find you if they want to work with you, learn more about what you do, or just wanna learn about your travels and your experiences?
I'm mostly on Instagram at coach_Tricia_travels.
Love it.
It's long when you have to say underscore.
I'll link this
Um,
in the show notes so you can just
yeah,
go
that'd
right
be
and
great.
find it.
Yeah, I have a Facebook as well, it's Tricia Sexton. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. I appreciate you coming and sharing your experiences and what you have next for you and just getting into conversation about traveling. I feel like we just in America, like we said, we just don't talk enough about it. We don't emphasize enough about it. And all over the world, people are traveling all the time. So I'm so glad we got to have this
Mhm.
conversation. I got to relive some of my travel experiences that feel like forever ago. So this was so fun.
I know, I agree. Yeah, this was a great conversation. One of my favorites.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. That's all for this episode of The B Word. Don't forget to check out the show notes for any resources we shared with you today, as well as finding our links to our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube channel, and our website, bucommunity.com. You can find out all of our course offerings, memberships, opportunities to work with me individually, and more. That's all for now. See you next time.